Welcome to Get Green, Northwest Indiana, your home for lawn care solutions with Steve Daly. Each podcast, you'll learn the secret tips to growing healthy green grass and best practice solutions for watering, weed and feed, aeration, and mowing. Here are your hosts, Steve Daly and Jim Jano.
Northwest Indiana has lawn warts, herpes.
You got a turf grass disease. Not uncommon right now. We've had high humidity for about 3 weeks. We finally started getting rain. These stressed out lawns were just sitting there waiting for something else to attack them, and that's where we're at.
I mean, to me, it sounds kind of nasty to have lawn fungus. What exactly is lawn fungus?
Well, I mean, a turf grass disease is, just a pathogen that's working its way through your lawn. There's all sorts of fungus in your environment, so good, bad. Some will eat insects that hurt turf. Some are doing other things. But what happens in a situation like this is it's been so humid and moist lately, the grass plant's staying wet too long. The thatch layer in lawns are acting like an incubator. They harbor the moisture, which spread the pathogen. Pathogens are just going everywhere. When you're talking a disease, basically you need a host, a pathogen, and the right environment. So when one of the things disappears, the pressure alleviates, everything's fine. But right now, none of that's taking place. The disease triangle is in full circle, and pretty much everything's being fueled.
Now, how do you tell if your lawn has fungus?
Well, I mean, you'll see brown spots or yellow spots. Some kind of discerning factor will show up. Disease is a lot different when you're looking at it, say, than insect damage. A lot of the time, disease will show on the blades of the plant. There'll be some kind of indicator, whether it's, discoloration, maybe some kind of lesions, but something will show up on your plant.
And what exactly does it look like? Can you identify it? I mean, I looked at some pictures before we did the podcast today, and I really struggled with being able to tell the difference. But yet, you've told me that the treatment is significantly important, that the treatment has to be to what you have. How do you know what you have, and what do you do next?
Well, most of the time you can tell by looking at the blades of the plant, trying to look at the pattern of the damage and what's going on. There are some diseases that mimic the other. Sometimes it'll be necessary to send a soil sample off with the affected grass to, say, a lab like Purdue's and get it analyzed. Time of year will also kind of dictate what disease is present at that time, what is common. So, say something that looks very similar, like necrotic ring spot and summer patch. Time of year when that starts to show up will give us an indication usually of which is which. If you're feeling uncomfortable with your diagnosis, you can always take soil samples, send them to Purdue. They're cheap. To get a diagnosis on it, it's probably $30. It's just
you're
what
prone
it takes.
To Purdue because you're educated there, you're certified. It seems like you've been somehow involved with Purdue your whole life, and so I guess that makes sense.
Go
for
Boilers! I mean, but no. As far as they're the turf grass department in our state, so that's where
they're the leading authority, and they're the ones that
they're the ones that basically have the turf science degrees and stuff like that there. So they have qualified people you can send samples off to, usually with pictures and other things to give them an indication of what's going on. And they can send you back a diagnosis of what they find in the soil or in the plant. So
now you have a lot of families that you help out with Perma-Green. Is fungus dangerous?
No. Turf fungus, turf disease is for turf. It's not going to affect a human.
Does the lawn fungus come from too much water? I mean, if somebody is watering their lawn correctly, can that cause the fungus?
The fungus is already there. Okay, so now the weather conditions are what are fueling the fungus. Now, if you're still running your irrigation system, say 3 days a week, and you've already got heavy dew setting up at night, you have, the rain that's already been provided, that's provided you with enough water for the week, then yes, over irrigation will fuel a disease because you're creating a more humid environment. The more humidity you create, the more inclined you are to have a disease issue. Okay, the idea of watering is to water it infrequently, heavy, so you do it once a week, and once every 5 days. You hit it hard with water and let it dry out. You don't need that top growth and that thatch wet. You just need the root system to get the water it needs.
Right. So now that our listeners know what lawn fungus is, or lawn herpes, as some people like to say, and to be funny. But what do you do if you have lawn fungus? What is lawn fungus treatment? First of all, I call it lawn fungus. You don't like that word. Why is that?
Turf grass diseases. That's just the way I refer to it. That's the way the industry refers to it. So, it is a fungus, and I just look at it a little bit.
So calling
different.
it lawn fungus is probably not any more accurate than us joking around calling it lawn herpes, because neither one is technically
That's not. Neither one's actually incorrect either. It's it's just a matter of trying to. Yeah, you're categorizing something. I just call it turf grass disease because that's what the industry calls it, and that's what it is. But when you refer to lawn fungus, there's fungus in the lawn that's good. So,
oh, that's interesting because you see, you hear about how sometimes people create problems in their homes because they overclean things with bleaches, and sometimes there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. I imagine that to some extent, jumping the gun on your lawn treatment without knowing what you're doing could potentially cause some problems because there might be a synergy.
Well, you don't want to sterilize the environment completely because there are fungus and bacteria. You start controlling all that in a lawn situation, you're changing the ecosystem. You're changing the environment. There's good fungus that feed on insects that are surface feeders or something. So there's a reason why you want fungus to be there originally. Okay, it's in everybody's lawn. It's part of the ecosystem. Everybody has it. So when somebody says, well, how did I get this fungus? It was already there. It was always there. It was just a matter of the right things coming together to fuel it to make things discolor or become abundant enough to create an issue.
Okay, so if somebody has a full season program, they're cutting their lawn correctly, they're mowing it at the right height, depending on the type of year and what the different other factors, and they're watering it on a regular basis. And they give you a call. They say, "Hey, Steve, my yard has lawn herpes." What's your first approach? Do you take action or what?
First, you got to determine what it is. You got to go out there, check it out, and see if it's something that's going to be detrimental. Is it something that we can avoid running a fungicide on, or does it need a fungicide? Is it something we can fertilize out? Is it something that shouldn't require any fertilizer?
So the first action is not let's get the aftermarket sale and sell them some fungicide. You take a different approach.
Well, and I'd prefer not to have to run fungicides, but there's certain lawns and certain conditions that dictate it. Okay. We have certain customers that have had a history of the same reoccurring disease, same kind of issue. So we will do preventative fungicides for them. But if we don't have to do that in year out, it's actually better for their lawn. But when they start showing this same, you got to try to get it out of there.
So let's assume that one of your technicians assesses the property and you do your due diligence and you discover that this is treatable. What does a solution look like?
Well, fungicides, when you start running them, have to be run generally, depending on which pathogen it is, what you're dealing with, every 14 to 28 days. So if you start thinking of you're taking this expensive fungicide, you're repeatedly having to apply it throughout the course of the duration of whatever activity's going on. I mean, that could go from, if we start doing it now, we could be doing it until September. There could be 4 applications at a high price. If it's not necessary, let's not do that. But, if it's just something that's cosmetic that'll eventually grow out, we don't necessarily have to throw a fungicide at it.
All right. So you love putting out tools, blogs, tables. You love educating your customers to make sure that they're doing their end of things right, because you can't do it all. You just came out with a new blog called Lawn Fungus. Northwest Indiana's extreme humidity causes grass herpes. Can you kind of break down the different types of lawn funguses?
Well, there's tons of them. The ones I really have a tendency to worry about, patch diseases, necrotic ring spot, things that are going to be more detrimental. Dollar spot we see all the time, rust. These are things that can be fertilized out usually, but there's certain ones that are going to be more detrimental, more impactful. And there's things we do for cosmetics, and there's things we do for making sure we keep as much of the lawn alive as possible. So
now your blog, it actually itemizes them, and I'm looking at it as we speak. And you've got the dollar spot, you got brown patch, fairy ring, powdery mildew, red thread, snow mold, what is that? How do you pronounce it? Necrotic ring. Necrotic ring, and then there's summer patch disease.
Summer patch.
But as you said,
there's leaf blights. You got Pythian blight, as a coccydal blight. So there's things that can take problems, make problems for you. Some are cosmetic, and we're okay with that. But when you start running through the whole list, there's going to be 3 or 4 of them that can really do some severe damage.
Really?
And most of them are the summer ones. But necrotic is one that's actually a spring one that shows up as looking like summer patch. And some of these diseases will recover, some are more severe. Some will leave divots in your lawn or circles, a frog-eyed look, things that are, you determine that when you get to it, and then the resolution might be, dethatch, aerate, overseed, whatever.
Well, that's a good point. You bring up in your blog things that, everyday things that people can do. There's just best practice lawn care. And you have them listed: mowing, watering. Talk a little bit about what somebody can do to make sure that they give themselves the best chance of not experiencing this, even though it might affect, it obviously can affect anybody no matter what you do. According to your blog, doing the right things can help eliminate the probability of that. What are they?
Mowing high, watering properly, aerating. Make sure your lawn can breathe. Don't let the compacted clay soils be the biggest issue. Now, just because you do these things doesn't mean you won't end up with a problem. I can't predict which lawns are going to end up with fungus problems. That's, but if you do the steps to try to eliminate what can create it, that's really what is the best practice. Do the cultural practices. If you're doing those properly, then it gives us a better chance of getting the lawn to recover.
Well, and I think that's kind of cool that you have that approach, because one of the reasons I never hired a lawn care company before was because prior to meeting you and you explaining to me what gave me peace of mind to work with you, plus to find out that I've been paying the same amount of money for Scots that you cost, and I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is water my yard and take care of it. But you seem to be of the notion that pesticides, fungicides, things like that should really only be used when necessary, not just because it's an added sale to somebody. And then you also seem to be concerned with these chemicals are expensive, and that's why you sometimes suggest people try to take alternate routes, as long as but when it does become severe enough, then it's time to call Dr. Steve.
I wouldn't go Dr. Steve. Don't think I'm educated quite that much. really what it comes down to is, I'd rather see the homeowners save money, keep money in their pocket, and spend it. I want them to be on our service. Don't get me wrong. That's
So if you save the money, they're going to buy you a vodka and cranberry drink when they see you next time out.
well, yeah. I mean, I'd hope so anyway. A martini would be nice. I don't know. But the idea is to not overexpose the environment to things we don't have to. I mean, the best weed control is a thick, healthy lawn. If I don't have to spray weeds as often or as frequently, and we're just treating edges and stuff like that, we've cleaned up the lawn. Healthier for the environment, healthier for the customer, better for everyone involved. It's going to make a healthier turf.
So, Steve, where can they find your blog and your community pages and everything else that people can use to learn how to handle their lawn care?
www.perma-green.com.
All righty. Well, Steve, thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge of lawn care and humidity and everything else that you do for our community in Northwest Indiana. And thanks again.
Thanks, Jano. Have a great day.
All right. Happy lawns, everybody. Happy green lawns.